All right, if you're in the dive business, you're going to want to pay close attention. We're about to crack open a really important survey from the Business of Diving Institute that looks at how divers actually spend their money. Our goal here is simple: turn this data into real-world, actionable intelligence that you can use for your dive operation. Let's get into it. So here's our game plan. First, we're going to figure out who these divers are today. Then, we'll follow the money, looking at what they spend on training, the big one, gear, and of course, services and travel. And we'll wrap it all up by pinpointing exactly where your biggest business opportunities are hiding in all this data. Okay, first things first. Before we can even think about strategy, we've got to know who we're talking to. Who is our customer? The survey breaks the entire market down into two really clear fundamental groups. Everything that follows really hinges on this one simple distinction. You've got your core divers. These are your regulars, your enthusiasts, the people doing 8 or more dives a year. Then you've got your casual divers. Think of them as the vacation divers, the ones who get in the water less than 8 times a year. Understanding this split is absolutely key. Now this is where it gets really, really interesting. There's a huge disconnect here. See, the people who were eager to answer the survey were mostly those die-hard core divers. But the actual market, the people walking past your shop door, is overwhelmingly casual divers. We're talking 3 out of every 4 divers. And that is the central challenge we're going to be talking about today. And if that wasn't clear enough, this quote from the source material really drives the point home. The trend is undeniable. Your most dedicated, high-spending customer base is getting smaller, while all the growth is coming from that occasional travel-focused diver. This means serving both isn't just a good idea anymore. It's absolutely essential for survival.
All right, now that we know who we're dealing with, let's start to follow the money. And the best place to start is usually the first place you interact with a customer: training and education.
So just think about your own students for a second. What would you guess the average person is spending on courses every year? Let's take a look at what the data actually says. So your core divers spend, on average, about $164 a year, and the casual divers, $124. Now, yeah, the core divers spends more, but look at that gap. It's not the massive chasm you might expect, right? This tells us that casual divers are absolutely still spending money on education, probably on things like entry-level certs or a specialty course they take while on vacation. And to put all that into perspective, the whole U.S. training market adds up to just under $300 million a year. It's a pretty big pie, for sure, but there are a lot of forks trying to get a piece of it. Now, here's a really crucial split that impacts your business model. A little over half of all that training money, 55%, is spent locally, probably at a dive shop just like yours. But a huge chunk, 45%, is spent at travel destinations. This shows there's a healthy market for both sides of the coin: for the local instructor building long-term relationships, and for the resort operator who's capturing that vacationer. And of course, training almost always leads to the next step, which just so happens to be the single biggest spending category in the industry: dive gear. This is the billion-dollar prize. We know training is a steady stream of income, but let's be honest, gear is where fortunes are made in dive retail. So who are the big spenders you need to be paying attention to? And here it is. This is probably the most dramatic, most important chart in this whole breakdown. The difference is just staggering. Core divers are spending almost $750 a year on new gear. Casual divers, just $132. Let me put it another way. One single core diver is worth more to your retail floor than 5 casual divers combined. Your core divers are your profit engine, period. Okay, so we know who is spending. Now for the million-dollar question that every single dive shop owner is asking: where are they spending it? Now, when you first look at this, it might seem a little concerning. Yeah, over half of all new gear sales are happening online. The digital world is a real competitor. But hang on, don't miss the most important detail hiding in these numbers. Look closer. When you break it all down, your local dive shop is still the #1 most dominant sales channel in the entire industry. You're capturing almost 43% of the market. That is more than any single online retailer. Your physical presence, your expertise, your community, that is a massive competitive advantage. So what should you be stocking on your shelves? Well, the data is crystal clear. A full quarter of all gear spending is on exposure protection. We're talking wetsuits, dry suits, hoods, gloves, the works. Right behind that, dive computers. Just those two categories alone make up over 40% of all gear sales. That's your inventory sweet spot right there. Okay, so selling gear is great, but what about the stuff that keeps customers coming back again and again? Let's talk about the services and activities that build loyalty and create that consistent, reliable cash flow. Wow, this slide really tells a story, doesn't it? It's the perfect illustration of why you need to cultivate those core divers. These spend 6 times more on high-margin gear servicing. But the real jaw-dropper is local diving, $690 a year compared to a measly $10 from casual divers. That's not just a gap, that's a canyon. It shows that your service bench and your local dive boat, they are the heart of your business, and they are funded almost entirely by your core customers.
So we've looked at the who, the what, and the where. Now we get to the most important part. What do you actually do with all this information? How do you turn this data into dollars?
It really boils down to a clear, two-pronged strategy. First, you have to nurture your core divers. They are the heart of your business, your profit engine. You need to create a community for them, offer advanced training, and be their go-to for gear and service. Second, you have to engage the casual diver. You can't ignore the majority of the market. They are your best source for Discover Scuba programs, entry-level courses, and those lucrative travel packages. So let's sum it all up. Your service department, it's a loyalty goldmine. Local diving is the lifeblood that keeps your core community together. Remember that casual divers are spending their money on travel and introductory courses. When it comes to retail, focus on what sells, exposure suits and computers. And never ever forget that your physical store, your community hub, is your single greatest asset in this business. And all of this leaves us with one final big picture thought. The data shows a clear shift away from a product-focused core diver to an experience-focused casual diver. So the question you need to be asking yourself is this: how will your business evolve? How will you move from just selling gear to engineering entire, unforgettable experiences that bring people back for more? Because that is the future.